Lieutenant Commander Kash Patel sat alone in the communications lab of the UES Horizon, his eyes fixed on the dancing patterns on his screen. For 3 weeks he had been analyzing the strange signal from Proxima Centauri, and tonight something had changed. The patterns were not random. They repeated too perfectly, too deliberately. This was not a natural phenomenon. Kash's heart beat faster as he ran the signal through his decryption algorithm again. The result was the same. He reached for the intercom with a slightly trembling hand. "Captain Martinez, this is Lieutenant Commander Patel. I need you in the communications lab immediately." 20 minutes later, Captain Elena Martinez stared at the screen, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the monitor. "You're certain?" "Yes, Captain. The signal contains mathematical sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, and what appears to be an invitation. There's no doubt it's artificial, and it's meant for us." Captain Martinez straightened her uniform. "I'll inform Earth Command. In the meantime, keep working on the translation. And Kash? Good work." Back on Earth, Dr. Jasmine Crockett nearly spilled her coffee when her assistant burst into her office at NASA's Deep Space Communications Network. "Dr. Crockett, they've found something. The UES Horizon has detected an alien signal." Jasmine set down her mug carefully. After 15 years of being mocked for her theories about intelligent life near Proxima Centauri, vindication felt strangely hollow. What mattered now was being part of the discovery. "Get me Admiral Thompson on the line," she said, already gathering her research tablets, "and book me on the next shuttle to the lunar base. I need to join that mission." Admiral Frank. Thompson was not easily impressed, but even he had to admit that Dr. Crockett's credentials were impeccable. Her theories might have seemed far-fetched, but her work in xenolinguistics and communication theory was groundbreaking. "Dr. Crockett, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, the UES Horizon is a military vessel on a surveillance mission, not a scientific expedition." Jasmine leaned forward in her chair, her voice steady. "With all due respect, Admiral, we're talking about first contact with an alien species. You need someone who has dedicated their life to studying potential communication methods with non-human intelligence. That's me." The Admiral frowned. "Lieutenant Commander Patel is highly qualified in communications. Patel is a military officer trained to intercept and decode enemy transmissions," Jasmine countered. "I've spent my career preparing for exactly this scenario. Besides, the world will want to see that we're approaching this as an opportunity for knowledge, not just a potential threat." 2 days later, Jasmine boarded the supply ship headed for the UES Horizon. As the Earth shrank behind her, she reviewed Patel's preliminary findings on the signal. His work was good, methodical, and thorough, but he was missing key cultural markers in the transmission patterns. She made notes, preparing for their first meeting. The UES Horizon was larger than Jasmine had expected, a sleek black ship designed to patrol the outer reaches of human space. As she stepped through the airlock, a tall man in a crisp uniform waited to greet her. "Lieutenant Commander Kash Patel," he said, extending his hand. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Crockett." His handshake was firm, his expression professional but guarded. Jasmine had expected hostility. Military types rarely welcomed civilian oversight, but Patel seemed more curious than annoyed. "Thank you, Commander. I've reviewed your work on the signal. Very impressive, especially given the limited reference points. But you believe you can do better?" he said. "It wasn't a question." Jasmine smiled. "I believe we can do better together." Their first working session proved her right. Patel's technical approach combined with Jasmine's cultural framework yielded results neither could have achieved alone. By the end of the ship's artificial day, they had identified patterns suggesting a binary language based on mathematical principles. "It's like they're speaking in pure logic," Kash said, rubbing his tired eyes. "No cultural context we can recognize." "That's exactly what we should expect," Jasmine replied, excitement clear in her voice. "They're establishing a common ground. Mathematics as a universal language." The next breakthrough came 3 days later. Kash called Jasmine to the lab at 0300 hours, his usual calm demeanor replaced with poorly contained excitement. "They sent coordinates," he said without preamble as she entered. "And not just any coordinates. They're pointing us to what appears to be a space station in orbit around Proxima Centauri b." Jasmine stared at the screen, her mind racing. "How far?" "At our top speed? 6 weeks. Captain Martinez needed only 1 day to get approval from Earth Command. The UES Horizon would proceed to the coordinates and make humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization." The journey gave Jasmine and Kash time to prepare. They worked on possible communication protocols, studied the continuing transmissions, and gradually moved from professional respect to something approaching friendship. "Why xenolinguistics?" Kash asked one evening as they shared a meal in the officers' mess. "It's not exactly a field with many job opportunities," Jasmine laughed. "Says the man who specialized in decoding transmissions from potential alien species." "That was never in my job description," he protested with a smile. "I was supposed to be intercepting communications from human colonies thinking about breaking away from Earth governance. Well, I was 8 years old when I found an old book about SETI," Jasmine said, growing serious. "Something clicked. The idea that we might not be alone, that someday we might speak with beings who see the universe completely differently. I never wanted to do anything else." Kash nodded. "For me, it was about serving a purpose bigger than myself, making a difference. And now we're both making the biggest difference in human history," Jasmine said softly. As they approached the coordinates, the entire crew grew tense with anticipation. The ship's sensors detected the structure long before it became visible. An enormous artificial construct in orbit around the small rocky planet. "All hands to stations," Captain Martinez ordered. "First contact protocol is now in effect." Kash and Jasmine stood side by side on the bridge as the UES Horizon moved closer to the alien structure. It was beautiful, a silver ring nearly 5 kilometers in diameter, rotating slowly to create artificial gravity, with spires and domes catching the red light of Proxima Centauri. "It's not a space station," Jasmine whispered. "It's an embassy. They built it for us." The communications console chimed, a new transmission stronger than before. "They're hailing us," Kash said, his voice steady despite the historical weight of the moment. "Using our own communication protocols. They've been studying our transmissions, just as we've been studying theirs." Captain Martinez nodded to him. "Open a channel, Commander." As Kash's fingers moved over the console, Jasmine touched his arm briefly. Their eyes met in a moment of shared understanding. Whatever happened next would change humanity forever. "Channel open," Kash announced. The screen filled with light, then resolved into an image that would soon be seen by every human on Earth. The being looking back at them was clearly alien, tall and slender with silvery skin and large, multifaceted eyes. Yet its features were arranged in a way that seemed almost deliberately familiar, as if designed to put humans at ease. "People of Earth," it said in perfect English, its voice melodic and calm. "We are the Amalfi. We welcome you to the Yao stars." 6 months passed quickly after first contact with the Amalfi. Earth changed in ways no one could have predicted. Nations that had been enemies for centuries now worked together, united by the knowledge that humanity was not alone in the universe. The Amalfi kept their promise. They built an embassy on Earth, a massive structure that rose from the Pacific Ocean about 300 miles west of Hawaii. It stood on a platform that seemed to hover just above the water, defying gravity and human understanding of physics. The building itself was made of a crystal-like material that changed colors with the sunlight, shifting from deep blue in the morning to brilliant gold at sunset. Kash Patel stepped out of the helicopter onto the embassy landing pad. The promotion to commander still felt new, as did the diplomatic uniform he wore instead of his usual military attire. As Earth's military liaison to the Amalfi, he had visited the embassy 12 times in the past 3 months. Each time, the II structure's impossible beauty took his breath away. "Commander Patel," a voice called from behind him. "Just the man I was hoping to see." Kash turned to find Dr. Jasmine Crockett walking toward him. Her new role as scientific ambassador had given her unprecedented access to Amalfi technology. Her team worked day and night studying the gifts the aliens had shared. Medical advances, clean energy methods, and communication systems far beyond human development. Dr. Crockett, he replied with a polite nod. Their relationship had grown, more complicated since returning to Earth. On the UES horizon, they had been colleagues with a common goal. Now they represented different approaches to humanity's new reality. Kash focused on security and protecting Earth's interests, while Jasmine pursued knowledge and technological advancement with little concern for potential risks. The Amalfi have invited us to a special dinner tonight, Jasmine said as they walked together toward the main entrance. Ambassador Vexlor says they have an important announcement. Any idea what it's about? Kash asked, keeping his voice casual despite his concern. The Amalfi had been generous so far, but something about their eagerness to share technology made him uneasy. Jasmine shook her head. No details, but they did mention that press will be present. Earth's major networks and several international officials. A public announcement then, Kash said thoughtfully. Interesting timing. What do you mean? The United Nations Security Council votes tomorrow on the Amalfi Defense Integration proposal. Some countries are still hesitant about connecting our military systems with theirs. Jasmine sighed. Always looking for threats, Commander. When will you accept that they're here to help us? When I'm convinced that help doesn't come with hidden costs, Kash replied. The dinner that evening was unlike any diplomatic event in human history. The main hall of the embassy had been transformed into a dining area with round tables spread throughout the space. Above them, the ceiling seemed to vanish, showing the stars despite the fact that it was barely sunset outside. Earth officials mingled with Amalfi representatives while cameras captured every moment for the billions watching at home. Kash found himself seated at the head table alongside Jasmine, Ambassador Vexlor, and several high-ranking officials from major world powers. The Amalfi served food that looked like Earth cuisine, but tasted subtly different. Familiar enough to be comfortable, but strange enough to remind everyone they were guests of an alien species. After the meal, Ambassador Vexlor stood to address the gathered crowd. The tall, silver-skinned alien moved with fluid grace to the center of the room. When Vexlor spoke, the translator devices provided by the Amalfi converted the musical tones into perfect English. Honored guests, friends from Earth, we have asked you here tonight to share something important. Since our arrival, we have watched your people embrace the opportunity for advancement. Your scientists, led by the brilliant Dr. Crockett, have made remarkable progress adapting our technologies. The ambassador gestured toward Jasmine, who smiled politely as cameras turned her way. Tonight, we wish to discuss the next phase of our relationship. As you know, the Amalfi have traveled among the stars for thousands of years. We have encountered many civilizations, some peaceful, others less so. Kash felt a small chill run down his spine. This was the first time the Amalfi had mentioned other alien species. For your continued safety and development, Vexlor continued, we believe it would be beneficial to discuss Earth's defensive capabilities, specifically your nuclear arsenals and how they might be integrated with Amalfi protective systems. Murmur ran through the crowd. Nuclear weapons remained a sensitive topic on Earth. Ambassador, the United States Secretary of Defense, spoke up. While we appreciate your concern, our nuclear capabilities are a matter of national security. Vexlor's large, faceted eyes blinked slowly. Of course, we respect your sovereignty, but perhaps Dr. Crockett can explain the benefits of such cooperation from a scientific perspective. All eyes turned to Jasmine. She stood, clearly prepared, for this moment. Thank you, Ambassador. The technical advantages would be significant. Amalfi shielding technology could transform our defensive missiles into a true protective network rather than just deterrence. And their guidance systems would ensure that no accidental launches could occur. Kash listened carefully, noting what she wasn't saying. Control. This was about control of Earth's most powerful weapons. The Russian representative leaned forward. And who would have final authorization for these integrated systems? A joint Command structure would be most effective, Jasmine replied. Shared responsibility for shared security. Dr. Crockett, Kash said, his voice carrying in the suddenly quiet room. Are you suggesting we give launch control of Earth's nuclear weapons to the Amalfi? The cameras swiveled to capture the exchange. This moment of tension was exactly what the networks had hoped for, Earth's military liaison challenging the scientific ambassador on live television. Jasmine's smile tightened. Commander Patel misunderstands. We would be creating a cooperative defense initiative. The Amalfi have been nothing but transparent with us. We maintain defensive measures appropriate to potential threats, Kash stated carefully, aware of the global audience. But surrendering control of those measures would be irresponsible. But surely, Jasmine countered, her voice rising slightly, we can be transparent with our new friends. After all, their technology is centuries beyond our own. What could they possibly gain by controlling our primitive weapons? The cameras captured Kash's expression darkening. The tension between them had become a focal point for the billions watching worldwide. Dr. Crockett believes in sharing everything, Kash said with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. I believe in ensuring humanity's continued independence and security. Perhaps that's why she's a scientist and I'm a soldier. The room fell silent. Jasmine's face flushed with anger and embarrassment as murmurs spread through the crowd. Even Ambassador Vexilor seemed taken aback by the directness of Kash's response. This is precisely the kind of paranoid thinking that has held humanity back for centuries, Jasmine finally said, her voice steady despite her obvious anger. No, Kash replied softly, but firmly enough for the microphones to pick up. This is the kind of caution that has kept humanity alive for centuries. In the awkward silence that followed, Ambassador Vexilor stepped forward, those alien eyes moving between the two humans with an unreadable expression. Perhaps, the ambassador said carefully, we should continue this discussion another time. After all, friendship requires trust, and trust requires time. But as the dinner concluded and the guests departed, something had changed. Questions that had been whispered were now being asked aloud. And Commander Kash Patel found himself becoming the reluctant voice of those who wondered what the Amalfi really wanted from Earth. Commander Kash Patel could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. For weeks after the televised dinner incident, he had been reviewing historical documents, searching for patterns that might confirm his suspicions about the Amalfi. His apartment walls were covered with images and notes, connecting dots that no one else seemed to notice. It started with ancient cave paintings in Australia showing figures remarkably similar to the Amalfi. Then he found Sumerian tablets with symbols that matched some of the patterns in the original alien transmission. The evidence kept building. Egyptian hieroglyphs, Mayan calendars, even Native American rock art, all containing elements that suggested the Amalfi had visited Earth long before their official arrival 6 months ago. Kash's phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. The caller ID showed it was Admiral Thompson. Commander, I'm sending you some files, the Admiral said without greeting. They're classified. Level 10 clearance. A team in Antarctica found something frozen in the ice. It's at least 5,000 years old. What is it, sir? Kash asked, already opening his secure tablet. An Amalfi artifact. There's no doubt about it. The carbon dating is conclusive and the material matches what we've seen at the embassy. Kash stared at the images loading on his screen, a small silver device with the unmistakable curves and patterns of Amalfi technology. They've been here before, he said softly. Yes, and they never mentioned it, despite all their talk of transparency and friendship. Does Dr. Crockett know about this? There was a pause on the line. That's the other thing, Commander, we think she does, and has for some time. The next morning, Kash requested an urgent meeting with the UN Security Council. He needed to present his findings before the Amalfi Integration Treaty was signed the following week. But when he arrived at the United Nations headquarters in New York, he was informed that the meeting had been canceled by direct request from the Scientific Advisory Committee, Jasmine's committee. Instead, there was to be a special broadcast from the Amalfi Embassy that evening. A global announcement about the next phase of human-Amalfi relations. Attendance was mandatory for all diplomatic liaisons, including Kash. The embassy was more crowded than Kash had ever seen it. Government officials, scientists, and media representatives filled the main hall. Giant screens had been set up to broadcast the event worldwide. Kash estimated that billions would be watching. He spotted Jasmine across the room, surrounded by her scientific team. She looked confident, excited even. When she saw him watching her, she excused herself and walked over. "Commander Patel," she said coolly, "I hope you're prepared to be more diplomatic tonight than you were at our last gathering." "What's this all about, Dr. Crockett?" Kash asked directly. "What are the Amalfi planning to announce?" Jasmine smiled. "A gift, something that will change human history for the better." "Like they changed it before?" Kash reached into his pocket and placed a small object in her hand, a tiny replica of the Antarctic artifact. Jasmine looked down at it, her expression unchanging. "Where did you get this?" "So you do recognize it," Kash said quietly. "How long have you known they've been manipulating human development for thousands of years?" "You don't understand," she replied, lowering her voice. "This isn't what you think." "Then explain it to me, not here." Jasmine glanced around nervously. After the announcement, she was interrupted by the sound of chimes signaling the start of the broadcast. Ambassador Vexilor glided to the center of the room, followed by several other Amalfi officials. "People of Earth," the ambassador began, voice translated through the room's speakers. "Today marks a historic moment in our developing friendship. After careful consideration, the Amalfi Council has decided to share our greatest gift, the knowledge of interstellar travel." The room erupted in gasps and excited murmurs. "Dr. Jasmine Crockett and her team have been working closely with our scientists for the past 3 months, Vexilor continued. Together, they have adapted our technology to be compatible with Earth's current capabilities. Dr. Crockett, would you like to explain the project?" Jasmine moved forward, her face now visible on screens across the planet. Kash watched her carefully, looking for signs of deception. "Thank you, Ambassador," she began. "The Amalfi have generously offered to help us build our first interstellar fleet. With their technology, we can reach nearby star systems in weeks instead of the centuries it would take with our current propulsion methods." She activated a holographic display showing the designs for sleek silver ships remarkably similar to Amalfi vessels. "The first 10 ships will be constructed in orbit over the next year," Jasmine continued. "This will open a new chapter in human exploration and establish Earth as part of the galactic community." The applause was thunderous, but Kash remained silent. Something in her phrasing bothered him. Part of the galactic community sounded too much like integration, not partnership. As Jasmine continued explaining the technical details, Kash made his way toward the stage. He hadn't planned to speak publicly tonight, but the Antarctic artifact burning a hole in his pocket demanded action. When Jasmine concluded her presentation, Vexilor stepped forward again. "We will now take questions from—" "I have a question." "Ambassador," Kash interrupted, his voice cutting through the room. All eyes turned to him as he approached the stage. "Commander Patel," Vexilor acknowledged with a slight nod. "Please proceed." Kash took the small device from his pocket and held it up for everyone to see. "Can you explain why an Amalfi artifact dated to be over 5,000 years old was found buried in Antarctic ice?" The room fell silent. Cameras zoomed in on the small silver object in his hand. "And while you're at it," Kash continued, using his tablet to project images onto the main screen, "perhaps you could explain these." The screen filled with his collected evidence, cave paintings, hieroglyphs, tablets, and calendars, all showing clear Amalfi influence. "You've been guiding human development for millennia," Kash said, staring directly at Vexilor. "Manipulating our civilization. The question is why?" Ambassador Vexilor remained still, those alien eyes unreadable. After a long moment, the ambassador looked toward Jasmine. "Perhaps Dr. Crockett would like to address these concerns, as she has been fully briefed on our historical relationship with Earth." The cameras swiveled to Jasmine, who stood frozen in the spotlight. The audience watched in stunned silence as she visibly struggled with what to say next. "Dr. Crockett," Kash pressed, Did you know about this? Have you been keeping this information from humanity? Jasmine took a deep breath and stepped forward. Commander Patel is correct, she finally said, her voice echoing in the silent hall. The Amalfi have visited Earth before. They have guided certain aspects of our development. Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Kash felt no satisfaction in being proven right, only a growing concern about what else had been hidden. We needed to understand them before creating panic, Jasmine continued, her professional facade cracking slightly. Yes, I've known for 3 months, but there's more to the story than you realize. Then tell us, Kash demanded. No more secrets. Jasmine looked at Ambassador Vexilor, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. The Amalfi aren't just visiting us, she said slowly. They're returning. Earth was once an Amalfi outpost. Thousands of years ago. We're their descendants, modified to survive on this planet while they explored the stars. As her words registered with the audience, the room erupted in chaos. Security personnel moved in to maintain order as reporters shouted questions and government officials demanded explanations. Through it all, Kash and Jasmine stood facing each other on stage, the truth finally between them. And on screens across the planet. Billions of humans confronted the possibility that their entire history was not what they had believed. 2 weeks after the shocking revelation about humanity's origins, the world was still in chaos. Religious leaders argued about what this meant for their beliefs. Scientists demanded more proof. Politicians struggled to maintain order as people. Around the globe protested, argued, and in some places rioted. The Amalfi had retreated to their embassy, refusing further communication except through official channels. Their ships remained in orbit, silent sentinels watching the human reaction unfold. Commander Kash Patel sat in a small conference room at the Pentagon, surrounded by military leaders from around the world. The mood was grim. Satellite imagery confirms they're building something in orbit, said General Laura Singh, pointing to blurry photos on the screen. We think it's a defense grid of some kind. Why would they need defenses? Asked the Chinese general. Our weapons are no threat. To their technology, maybe it's not for defense against us, Kash suggested. Perhaps they're expecting someone else. The room fell silent as everyone considered this possibility. Admiral Thompson cleared his throat. Commander Patel, you've had more direct contact with the Amalfi than anyone except Dr. Crockett. What's your assessment of the situation? Kash chose his words carefully. I believe they're preparing for something. The speed at which they're building these orbital structures suggests urgency. We need more information, the Russian general said. Where is Dr. Crockett? She seemed to have their trust. Under protective custody, Admiral Thompson replied. After her announcement, she received death threats. She's being kept at a secure location. Kash stood up. I need to speak with her. The secure location turned out to be a small military base in the Nevada desert. Jasmine Crockett had been given comfortable quarters, but the armed guards outside her door made it clear she wasn't free to leave. When Kash entered, she was sitting by the window staring out at the barren landscape. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. Commander Patel, she said without turning around. Come to gloat? No, Kash replied, taking a seat across from her. I came for the truth, all of it this time. Jasmine finally looked at him. The truth? The truth is that I believed I was doing the right thing, that the Amalfi were here to help us advance. And now? She sighed. Now I'm not sure. After you exposed the Antarctic artifact, they changed. Ambassador Vexilor was cold, calculating, not the friend I thought I knew. Tell me about the collective, Kash said, pulling out his tablet. They've mentioned it several times in their communications. The Amalfi are part of a galactic alliance, the collective. They described it as a union of advanced species working together for mutual benefit. And humanity's role in this collective? Jasmine hesitated. They said we would be welcomed as equals, that our unique perspective would be valued. But you don't believe that anymore, Kash observed. No, she admitted. After your revelation, I confronted Vexilor privately. The ambassador said something that bothered me. That human independence was an interesting experiment, but ultimately unsustainable. Like we were some kind of project they were evaluating. Kash leaned forward. One more thing. The ships they're helping us build, the interstellar fleet, where are they supposed to go? To a planet they call Amalfi Prime. They said it was to establish diplomatic relations, but Jasmine trailed off. But what? But the specifications they provided would allow the ships to carry up to 50,000 people each. That's not a diplomatic mission, that's evacuation, Kash finished, or relocation. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm blaring through the base. Kash's secure phone buzzed with an urgent message. We need to go. Now, he said, reading the screen. The Amalfi have called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations. They're issuing what they're calling important guidance for Earth's future. Within hours, they were on a military transport to New York. The situation had escalated during their flight. Amalfi ships had moved into lower orbit, positioning themselves over major cities around the globe. The emergency UN session was being broadcast worldwide. When Kash and Jasmine arrived at the UN headquarters, the building was surrounded by protesters and media. They were rushed through a side entrance and led directly to the General Assembly Hall, which was packed with representatives from every nation. Ambassador Vexilor stood at the podium, the tall alien figure presenting a calm contrast to the tense humans filling the room. Representatives of Earth, the ambassador began as Kash and Jasmine took their seats. Recent events have created unnecessary tension between our peoples. It is time for clarity. The room grew quiet. Yes, the Amalfi have guided human development. We seeded this planet with our genetic material thousands of years ago. You are, in essence, our children. Murmurs spread through the audience. And like any parent, we want what is best for our children. Earth is facing multiple crises. Climate change, resource depletion, political instability. These are problems you cannot solve alone. Vexler's voice grew firmer. The collective has been monitoring your progress. They have determined that humanity is not yet ready for true independence. Therefore, we are offering you a choice. The screens around the hall displayed images of the ships being built in orbit. Join the collective willingly. Allow us to guide your integration into galactic society. Selected representatives of humanity will join us on Amalfi Prime to learn our ways. The remainder will continue here, under Amalfi supervision, until ready for full integration. The ambassador paused, letting the words sink in. Or refuse, and face the consequences of your isolation. We cannot allow an unstable society with primitive weapons to threaten galactic peace. The room erupted in angry shouts and questions. The Secretary General struggled to restore order. This is not a negotiation, Vexler continued when the noise subsided. This is an ultimatum. You have 48 hours to provide your answer. As the ambassador left the podium, chaos broke out again. Representatives argued loudly with each other as security personnel tried to maintain order. Kash looked at Jasmine, whose face had gone pale. This isn't what they promised you, is it? She shook her head. No, this is invasion disguised as salvation. We need to get out of here, Kash said, taking her arm. We need to form a plan. They slipped out as the arguments continued, making their way to a small conference room where Admiral Thompson was waiting with several other military leaders. You heard? The Admiral asked as they entered. Kash nodded. It's worse than we thought. This isn't partnership, it's conquest. What can we do? A British general asked. Their technology is far beyond ours. We can't fight them. Maybe we don't have to fight them, Jasmine said quietly. All eyes turned to her. I've spent months studying their technology, their communication systems, their ship designs. They have weaknesses. More importantly, they have factions. Factions? Admiral, Thompson asked. The Amalfi aren't united in their approach. Some believe in true cooperation, not control. Ambassador Vexilor represents the dominant faction, but not the only one. Kash studied her face. You've been in contact with these other factions. It wasn't a question, but Jasmine nodded anyway. Yes, and they might be willing to help us. Help us how? The Admiral demanded. By giving us the one thing that might save humanity, she replied, looking directly at Kash. Knowledge. The 48-hour deadline was almost up. Earth's governments had failed to reach a consensus on how to respond to the Amalfi ultimatum. Some nations wanted to accept the terms, believing resistance was pointless. Others refused to surrender, human independence no matter the cost. In a secure underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Kash Patel and Dr. Jasmine Crockett worked frantically with a small team of scientists and military specialists. The room was filled with computers and equipment salvaged from Jasmine's research lab. Are you sure this will work? Admiral Thompson asked, looking over the complicated diagrams spread across the central table. No, Jasmine admitted, but it's our best chance. For 3 days, they had been working on what Jasmine called Project Quantum Lock. Using information provided by her Amalfi contacts, members of a resistance faction opposed to the collective's methods, they had identified a weakness in the alien ship's communication system. The principle is simple, Jasmine explained, pointing to the diagram. Amalfi ships use quantum entanglement for instant communication across vast distances, but their encryption has a flaw our mathematics detected. If we can disrupt the entanglement pattern at the right frequency, their entire fleet will lose coordination. And if we're wrong, Kash asked, then nothing happens, and we face the collective alone. The door to the facility opened and a young lieutenant rushed in. Sir, the President is ready for the emergency broadcast. The Amalfi have agreed to hear Earth's response on a global transmission. Admiral Thompson nodded. It's time. Are you both ready? Kash and Jasmine exchanged a look. They had been enemies, then reluctant allies, and now Earth's last hope. Without words, they both nodded. An hour later, they stood in a broadcasting studio hastily set up in the facility. Cameras were positioned to show only them and a simple backdrop with the United Nations logo. The rest of the room, filled with technical equipment for Project Quantum Lock, would remain off-camera. Broadcasting in 60 seconds, the technician announced. Jasmine adjusted her jacket nervously. Remember the plan. I speak first. You follow my lead. I know, Kash replied. His hand brushed against hers briefly. Whatever happens, it's been an honor working with you, Dr. Crockett. She smiled. Likewise, Commander. Live in 3, 2, 1. The red light on the camera came on. Billions around the world turned to their screens to watch what might be humanity's final moments of independence. People of Earth and representatives of the Amalfi, Jasmine began, her voice steady despite the pressure. I am Dr. Jasmine Crockett, speaking on behalf of the United Nations Response Committee. In the Amalfi Embassy, Ambassador Vexlor and the other aliens watched with their usual unreadable expressions. After careful consideration of your proposal, Jasmine continued, we wish to discuss the terms of our integration into the collective. As you suggested, we would like to send representatives to Amalfi Prime to learn your ways. Beside her, Kash maintained a neutral expression, though this was not the agreed-upon message. She was improvising. However, Jasmine added, we have concerns about the supervision you propose for those remaining on Earth. Commander Patel will explain our position. She stepped back, giving Kash a subtle nod. The scientists behind the camera were rapidly adjusting their equipment based on her unexpected opening. Kash moved forward. Ambassador Vexlor, the people of Earth value their independence. While we appreciate the Amalfi's guidance, we cannot accept complete supervision. On screens around the world, the broadcast split to show both the human representatives and the Amalfi embassy, where Vexlor had moved to a podium. Your concerns are noted, Commander, the alien replied, voice calm but cold. However, the terms are not negotiable. The collective has determined that humanity requires direct oversight. Behind them, the scientists gave a thumbs up. The Amalfi were now using their quantum communication to broadcast the response to their ships in orbit. The system was active. Perhaps, Kash said, choosing his next words carefully. You could explain to your leaders why all Amalfi ships in our solar system have been compromised. Vexilor's usually impassive face showed the first hint of concern. Explain yourself. Kash nodded to someone off camera. A scientist pressed a button on their equipment. On a small screen visible only to Kash and Jasmine, they could see that the signal had been sent. While you were studying us, Kash continued, confidence growing, we were studying you. Your ships communicate using quantum entanglement, but your encryption has a fundamental flaw. Dr. Crockett discovered it 3 months ago. And Commander Patel's team weaponized it 2 months ago, Jasmine added, standing beside him now. Kash held up a small device similar to a remote control. With this, we can disable your entire fleet with a single command. The Amalfi ambassador conferred urgently with others off-screen. When Vexilor turned back to the camera, the alien's composure had slipped noticeably. You are bluffing. Such technology is beyond human capabilities. Kash pressed a button on the device. Across the world, people watching the broadcast saw the lights on the Amalfi embassy flicker momentarily. A small demonstration, but its implications were clear. That was just your translation devices, Kash explained. A small example of what we can do. The next target would be your orbital platforms, followed by your ships. The camera showed Vexilor conferring again, more urgently this time. In the background, other Amalfi rushed about in what appeared to be controlled panic. Commander Patel, Dr. Crockett, Vexilor finally responded. The collective does not respond well to threats. This isn't a threat, Jasmine said, her voice firm but calm. This is a demonstration of why you need us. Human thinking is different from yours. We find solutions you would never consider. You want us to be part of the collective? Fine, but as equals, not subjects. For thousands of years, you've guided our development, Kash added. Now see what we've become. We can be valuable allies or dangerous enemies. The choice is yours. The broadcast showed Vexilor receiving what appeared to be an urgent message from another Amalfi. The ambassador's expression shifted from concern to something resembling respect. It seems we have underestimated humanity, Vexilor said slowly. Our analysis of your defensive capabilities did not account for your adaptability. Perhaps we should discuss new terms, Jasmine suggested. A true partnership between equals. Vexilor was silent for a long moment, those alien eyes studying the two humans carefully. The collective will need to re-evaluate its approach to Earth. Take all the time you need, Kash replied, his finger still hovering over the device. But while you deliberate, your ships will remain where they are, and Earth will remain independent. Very well, Vexilor eventually conceded. We propose a temporary agreement while new terms are negotiated. The Amalfi will withdraw to high orbit. The knowledge-sharing program will continue on a voluntary basis. As Vexilor outlined the details of this temporary arrangement, people across the globe began to celebrate. Humans had stood their ground against an advanced alien civilization, and won. When the broadcast ended, Kash turned to Jasmine with a genuine smile. Not bad for a scientist. Not bad for a soldier, she replied, returning his smile as the room around them erupted in cheers. Outside the facility, dawn was breaking over the mountains. It was the first day of humanity's new place in the universe, not as subjects or children, but as equals. The path ahead would be challenging, but Earth would face it united and independent, reaching for the stars on its own terms.